A horse found this in an abandoned ranch well. But upon opening it, everyone is shocked. Mrs. Martha woke up that October morning with a heavy heart, as had happened every day for the past 2 years. At 73, she found herself forced to leave the only home she had ever known, pressured by circumstances that seemed to have conspired against her all at once. It was when she looked through the foggy kitchen window that she saw Rusty, the old brown horse with a golden mane, approaching the old stone well in the yard of the abandoned ranch. The animal, who had roamed freely on the neighboring property for decades, rarely ventured so close to the crumbling house. But that morning, something seemed different. Martha watched, intrigued, as the horse lowered its muzzle to the edge of the well, and with careful movements began to pull something from the dark water. Her tired eyes tried to focus better on the scene. What Rusty held between its teeth was a black plastic bag, soaked and heavy. The horse deposited it on the packed dirt ground and snorted, as if delivering a precious gift. Martha's heart raced. Unable to contain her curiosity, she slipped on her worn slippers and ran out toward the yard, forgetting her age and the knees that protested with every step. Her hands trembled as she approached the wet bag Rusty had left there, like a mysterious offering. Upon opening the bag with nervous fingers, Martha felt the world spin around her. Inside, protected by 2 more layers of plastic, were yellowed documents, old photographs, and a handwritten letter in her own handwriting from decades ago. But it was what was written on the sealed envelope that made her legs wobble. For Martha, my dear sister, when all seems lost. The letter was from Beatrice, her younger sister, who had passed from this world 3 years prior. With tears blurring her vision, Martha read the words that changed everything. Martha, if you are reading this, it is because God wanted you to discover the truth about our inheritance. The original deed to the ranch is here, proving you have always been the sole rightful owner. Forgive me for never telling you, but I needed to protect our legacy from those who only wanted to harm us. Martha let herself fall to the dirt ground, clutching the wet papers to her chest. For years, she had believed she had lost the right to the inheritance after that terrible fight with Beatrice's children. They had always said the ranch belonged to everyone equally, and that she was being selfish for wanting to keep it all. But now, with the original documents in her hands, the painful truth was revealed. Beatrice had lied to everyone for decades, hiding the fact that their father had left everything exclusively to Martha, the eldest daughter, for being the only one who had cared for him until his final days. The discovery explained so many things: why Beatrice always seemed nervous when they talked about the inheritance, why she had insisted so much that Martha split everything equally with the nephews, why the official papers always seemed to be with her, never with Martha. Rusty remained standing there, watching her with his dark, wise eyes, as if he knew exactly what had just happened. The horse whinnied softly, almost whispering secrets that only the winds of the abandoned ranch knew. Still in shock, Martha ran back into the house, where she stored the documents in a safe place. Her mind buzzed with plans. The nephews, Gregory, Jeffrey, and Heather, had scheduled a meeting for that very afternoon, bringing a buyer interested in the property. They had pressured her for months to accept an offer she knew was well below the real value, claiming it was better to sell quickly before she got too old to decide on her own. All morning long, Martha walked through the house like a lost soul, alternating between anger over the discovered betrayal and relief at finally knowing the truth. For 47 years she had believed the version told by others. For 47 years she had felt guilty for wanting to keep the ranch that was rightfully hers. At 2 o'clock sharp, Gregory's white pickup truck parked in front of the rusty gate. Out of it stepped the 3 siblings and an unknown man, dressed in a grey suit and tie, whom Martha imagined was the interested buyer. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, Gregory, at 52, had always been the most authoritarian of the 3. He entered the house without asking permission, as if he owned the place. Behind him came Jeffrey, 48, and Heather, the youngest at 44, who had always been the sweetest of the 3, but who in recent months had shown herself to be as interested as her brothers in selling the property. Aunt Martha, "We've brought Mr. Howard, who is interested in buying the ranch," announced Gregory, without even properly greeting her. "He's made a very good offer, considering the state of the property." Howard, a fat man of about 60, looked around the house with visible contempt, jotting things down on a little yellow notepad. Martha immediately realized he had already been instructed to devalue everything he saw. "Mrs. Martha," said Howard in a thick voice, "may I be frank with you? This property is in terrible condition. The house needs a complete renovation, the roof is compromised, and this land hasn't produced anything for years. I'm offering $150,000, but it's a favor I'm doing for your nephews." Martha knew the ranch was worth at least 5 times more. It was 57 acres of good land, a house that only needed a few repairs, and a prime location just 9 miles from the nearby town. But she decided to pretend she was considering the offer, while carefully observing each one's reactions. "I don't know. It's so little money," she murmured, playing confused. "Aunt, you don't understand how the market works," interrupted Heather with a forced smile. "Rural properties are devalued. Besides, you're already getting on in years. It's better to sell now and secure a little money for your retirement. And where are you going to find someone willing to buy this abandoned property?" added Jeffrey. "Mr. Howard is doing us a favor, Aunt. We can't let this opportunity pass." Martha noticed how they talked over her, as if she didn't have the capacity to understand or decide. It had been like this for years, ever since Beatrice had left. They treated her like a senile old woman, incapable of managing her own life. "I need to think," she said finally. "There's no time to think, Aunt," pressured Gregory. "Mr. Howard needs an answer today. If you don't accept, he'll look at other properties." "That's true," confirmed Howard, putting the notepad in his pocket. "I have other deals to close this week. If it's not today, I'll pass." Martha watched them for a long moment. There it was, the play they had been acting out for months. The pressure, the rush, the devaluation. All orchestrated so she would give in quickly, without question. But now she knew the truth. "All right," she said, surprising everyone. "I accept the offer." The 3 nephews exchanged looks of relief and satisfaction. Howard smiled and immediately began pulling papers from a briefcase. "Excellent decision, Mrs. Martha," he said. "I have the preliminary contracts here. You can sign today, and we'll close the deal in 15 days. As Howard spread the papers across the kitchen table, Martha noticed details that had previously gone unnoticed. Gregory had an expensive watch on his wrist, Jeffrey wore imported sneakers, and Heather carried a designer purse. For people who always complained about financial difficulties, they seemed to be doing quite well for themselves. "I need to read everything carefully before I sign," she said, picking up the contracts. "Aunt, these are standard documents," said Gregory impatiently. "I can explain everything to you." "No, I want to read it myself. You can all go have coffee in the nearby town and come back in 2 hours." Howard seemed bothered by the delay, but the nephews convinced him to wait. After everyone had left, Martha hurried to fetch the documents that Rusty had found. Reading more carefully, she discovered details that left her even more outraged. Besides the original deed, there were letters exchanged between Beatrice and a lawyer, in which her sister confessed that she had lied to everyone about the inheritance because she felt guilty for not having cared for their father as Martha had done. Beatrice knew that the ranch belonged entirely to her older sister, but she never had the courage to tell the truth to her own children. One of the letters revealed something even more disturbing. Beatrice had discovered that Gregory and Jeffrey were planning to put her in a nursing home as soon as they got the property deed. They wanted to sell everything quickly and split the money, leaving their elderly aunt with nothing. When the 4 returned 2 hours later, Martha was waiting for them on the porch, sitting in the rocking chair that had belonged to her mother. She had decided it was time to confront them, but to do it cleverly. "So, Aunt?" asked Gregory eagerly. "Have you read everything?" "Yes, I have," she replied calmly, "and I would like to make a different proposal to Mr. Howard." "What do you mean, different?" Jeffrey seemed alarmed. "Well, after reading the contracts more carefully, I realized you are offering far too little for the property. How about $300,000? Howard nearly choked on his own saliva. The nephews turned pale. "Aunt, have you lost your mind?" exploded Gregory. "No one is going to pay that much for this ranch." "It's true," Howard lied quickly. "My offer is final, $150,000 or nothing." Martha smiled with a serenity she did not feel. "Then I prefer not to sell." "What do you mean, not sell?" Heather looked desperate. Aunt, you can't waste an opportunity like this. Why are you all so desperate for me to sell? Asked Martha, watching each of their reactions. Because we're worried about you, lied Gregory. A woman your age shouldn't live alone in this isolated place. And do you really think $150,000 is a good price for 23 acres of good land? The three exchanged nervous glances. Martha realized they knew exactly how much the ranch was worth, but were trying to cheat her. Aunt, you don't understand business, said Geoffrey condescendingly. It's better to leave this to those who do. Perhaps you're right, she agreed falsely. How about if I look for a lawyer to help me understand these documents better? The word lawyer seemed to terrify the three of them. Gregory turned red, Geoffrey began to sweat, and Heather averted her gaze. You don't need a lawyer, Aunt, said Gregory quickly. A lawyer will just charge a lot and complicate things. That's right, Mrs. Martha, agreed Howard. A lawyer only serves to delay simple business like this. Martha realized she had touched their weak spot. If there was one thing they didn't want, it was a lawyer examining those papers. But I insist, she said firmly. I will go see Attorney Arthur in the nearby town tomorrow. Attorney Arthur was the most respected lawyer in the region, known for his honesty and competence. The mere mention of his name made Howard rise from his chair. Well, if that's the case, I have no more business here, he said, hastily gathering his papers. When you've made a decision, have them contact me. After Mr. Howard left, the three nephews were alone with Martha. The atmosphere was tense and she could feel their frustration in the air. Auntie, you're being very stubborn, said Heather, trying to sound sweet. We only want what's best for you. If you want what's best for me, why are you trying to convince me to accept such a low offer? Because it's not low, exploded Gregory. It's what this property is worth. And how would you know that? Well, anyone can see this ranch isn't worth anything, said Geoffrey. Just look at the state of this house. Martha observed them for a moment. They seemed genuinely convinced they had the right to pressure her to sell, but there was something off about their behavior. The anxiety, the rush, the insistence. It was as if they desperately needed the sale to happen quickly. May I ask a question? She said calmly. Of course, Auntie, replied Heather. Have you already received an advance from Mr. Howard? The silence that followed was deafening. The three of them froze like children caught misbehaving. What do you mean, an advance? Stammered Gregory. It's a simple question. Have you already received money from him before I've even signed the papers? What a crazy idea, Auntie, tried Geoffrey, but his voice trembled. Martha realized she had hit the nail on the head. Their reaction confirmed her suspicions. They had already negotiated the property before even convincing her to sell. I think you'd better go home, she said, standing up. I need to rest. Auntie, we're not leaving here until you sign these papers, said Gregory, in a threatening tone. Gregory, scolded Heather, don't talk to Auntie like that. I'm just tired of this runaround, he vented. We've been coming here for months trying to settle this, and Auntie keeps making excuses. What's the rush? Asked Martha. Gregory realized he had said too much and tried to control himself. It's not a rush, Auntie. It's just that, well, opportunities like this don't come along often. It's true, agreed Geoffrey. Mr. Howard could back out at any moment. Martha knew they were lying, but decided not to confront them directly yet. She needed more information before revealing what she really knew. All right, she said. I'll think about what you've said. Come back next week. Next week? Gregory seemed desperate. Can't it be sooner? Why the rush, Gregory? It's not a rush, it's that we worry about you, Heather interrupted quickly. You're getting more and more alone out here. I have Rusty, said Martha, pointing to the horse grazing nearby. He's good company. A horse is no company for a person, said Geoffrey. You need to move to the nearby town, be near people. And you think $150,000 is enough for me to buy a house in town and support myself for the rest of my life? You have your pension, Gregory reminded her. A minimum wage doesn't get you anything these days. We can help, said Heather without much conviction. Martha almost smiled. They could barely hide that they had no intention of helping her after they got their hands on the sale money. After the nephews left, she remained alone on the porch, watching Rusty graze peacefully. The horse had changed her life in just a few hours. If it weren't for him, she would never have discovered the truth about the inheritance. That night, Martha could hardly sleep. Her mind was buzzing with plans and strategies. In the morning, she decided to put the first step into action, to seek out attorney Arthur. The nearby town was 15 miles from the ranch, a trip she made by bus twice a month to run errands and take care of business. Attorney Arthur's office was on the main street, in an old house that had been converted into a law practice. Arthur Sterling was 68 years old and had been practicing law in the region for over 40 years. Martha had known him since she was young, when he was just starting out in the profession. He was a man of integrity and knowledge, respected by everyone in town. "Mrs. Martha," he exclaimed upon seeing her enter, "what a pleasure to have you here. How can I help you?" She told him the whole story, from the discovery in the well to the pressure from her nephews. She showed the documents that Rusty had found and explained her suspicions about her relative's behavior. Attorney Arthur examined the papers carefully, using a magnifying glass to check the details. After nearly an hour of analysis, he looked up with a serious expression. "Mrs. Martha, these documents are absolutely authentic. There is no doubt that this ranch belongs entirely to you." "So it's true. Beatrice lied all these years." "Apparently so. And there's one more thing you need to know. I received a visit from your nephews 2 weeks ago." "What do you mean?" "They came here asking about the ranch's documentation. They wanted to know if it would be possible to speed up the probate process if you decided to sell." Martha felt a chill down her spine. "And what did you tell them?" "I told them I couldn't give information about matters involving third parties without authorization. But they insisted a lot, especially Gregory." "Did they say why?" "They claimed they were worried about your well-being. They said you were getting confused and that it might be better to sell the property while you still had your wits about you." Martha was outraged. They were spreading lies about her mental state to justify pressuring her to sell. "Attorney Arthur, what do you think I should do?" "First, let's file these documents at the Notary Public Office to ensure their legal validity. Second, I suggest we get an official appraisal of the property to establish its true value. And third, I think it's prudent to investigate your nephew's intentions further." "Investigate how?" "Well, if they have already received advances from this buyer, there's a possibility they may have committed irregularities. No one can sell what they don't own." Martha spent the rest of the morning at the Notary Public Office, filing the documents and initiating the legal process to confirm her ownership. Attorney Arthur also arranged for an appraiser to examine the ranch the following week. When she returned home, she found Gregory waiting for her on the porch, visibly agitated. "Where have you been, Aunt?" he asked as soon as she got off the bus. "Why do you ask?" "We worry when you disappear like that without telling us." "I went to town to take care of some things." "What things?" Martha noticed he was too nervous for a simple, casual question. "I went to the bank, the pharmacy, normal things." "Oh, that's a relief." He seemed relieved. "I thought you had gone to see a lawyer." "Why couldn't I see a lawyer?" "It's not that you can't, Aunt, it's that you don't need to. We can sort everything out as a family without involving strangers." Martha watched him closely. Gregory was sweating, fidgeting nervously with his hands and avoiding eye contact. Typical behavior of someone hiding something. "Gregory, can I ask you a question?" "Of course, Aunt." "Do you really believe $150,000 is a fair price for this ranch?" He hesitated before answering. "It's what the market is offering, Aunt." "But you know this land as well as I do. You know it has always been productive, that the location is good, that the house just needs a few repairs." "Aunt, those things don't matter nowadays. What matters is that you're already advanced in age and need to get rid of these worries." "And what if I said I don't want to get rid of them? That I want to keep living here?" "That would be crazy, Aunt. A woman your age alone in this isolated place." "Why is it crazy? I've lived here for 73 years. Because it's not safe. What if you get sick? What if something happens?" Martha realized he had been using the same arguments for months, as if he had memorized a script. "Gregory, have you already spent the money you received from Howard?" The question caught him off guard. He turned pale and began to stammer. "What? What money, Aunt?" "The advance. I know you received an advance from him." I don't know what you're talking about. Gregory, don't lie to me. I know you made some deal with him even before I agreed to the sale. He was silent for a long moment, clearly trying to decide what to say. Aunt, it was just a small advance to show he was serious. How much? Not much. $15,000 each. Martha did the math quickly. $45,000 had already been taken out of the sale price before she even agreed to negotiate. And where is that money now? We used it for some necessary things. What things? Personal things, Aunt. Nothing major. But Martha remembered Gregory's expensive watch, Jeffrey's imported sneakers, Heather's designer purse. They had spent the money on luxuries, betting that she would accept the sale. And if I don't sell, how will you pay him back? Gregory turned even paler. You are going to sell, Aunt. You have to sell. Why? Because you need the rest of the money to pay off the debts you've made? They're not debts. We just bought some things because we knew the sale was going to happen. You bought on credit, more or less. Martha began to understand the scale of the problem. They had not only received advances from Howard, but had also gone into debt, counting on the sale money. Gregory, tell me the truth. How much do you owe? He was silent, clearly uncomfortable. Gregory, I'm not going to judge you. I just want to understand the situation. We owe about $100,000, Aunt. The revelation left her breathless. $100,000 was almost the entire amount Howard was offering for the ranch. How did you manage to owe so much money? Oh, Aunt, it was several things. Jeffrey financed a car, Heather renovated the house, I invested in a business that went wrong, and you were counting on the money from my ranch to pay for all of this. We knew you would understand. We're family, right, Aunt? Martha felt a mix of sadness and anger. They had planned their financial lives counting on money that wasn't theirs. And if I don't sell? You have to sell, Aunt. There's no other option. Of course there is. This ranch is mine, and I decide what to do with it. Aunt, you don't understand. If we don't get this money... What? You'll go bankrupt? Gregory lowered his head, confirming Martha's worst fears. That's right, Aunt. If the sale doesn't happen, we're lost. At that moment, Martha understood everything. The pressure, the rush, the arguments about her age and mental capacity, it was all part of a desperate plan to save them from financial ruin using her assets. Gregory, where are Jeffrey and Heather now? At home. Why? Because I think we need to have a talk, all of us together. What for, Aunt? To decide how to resolve this situation in a way that's fair for everyone. Gregory seemed hopeful for the first time that afternoon. You're going to accept the sale? I'm going to accept talking. It's different. That night, the three nephews returned to the ranch for the meeting Martha had requested. She received them in the living room, with the documents found by Rusty kept in a safe place, but without revealing them yet. Well, she began, Gregory told me about your financial difficulties. Jeffrey and Heather shot furious looks at their brother, who had apparently told more than he should have. They're not exactly difficulties, Aunt, Heather tried. They're just some commitments we made. Commitments of $100,000, it seems. Gregory, did you tell her everything? Exploded Jeffrey. I had to. She already suspected. Calm down, interrupted Martha. Let's not fight here. Let's try to resolve this as a family. So, you will accept the sale? Asked Heather anxiously. First, I want you to tell me the whole truth, without omitting anything. The three exchanged nervous glances. What truth, Aunt? Asked Jeffrey. The truth about this deal with Howard. The truth about the money you received. The truth about why you're so desperate for me to sell. We already explained, Aunt, said Gregory. It's for your own good. Gregory, enough with the lies. You're doing this for your own good, not mine. And I understand that. You got yourselves into a difficult situation and think I can fix it. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Heather began to cry softly. Aunt, we didn't want it to come to this, but we really are desperate. Tell me exactly what happened. Well, began Jeffrey, after Mother passed, we didn't know how the inheritance matters would be settled. We thought we would split everything equally, continued Gregory. Then a friend told me he knew a buyer interested in rural properties, went on Heather. That's when we met Howard. He said he could pay in cash, but needed guarantees that the sale would happen, explained Jeffrey. Is that when he offered the advances? Asked Martha. Yes, 15,000 for each as a sign he was serious. And we accepted. And you spent the money thinking I would accept the sale. We were sure you would accept, said Gregory. After all, you're getting older, you need money. And if I didn't want to sell? We never imagined you would refuse, admitted Heather. Martha observed them for a moment. They were naive, greedy, and irresponsible, but not evil. They had gotten themselves into a complicated situation through recklessness, not malice. And now, she asked, how do you plan to get out of this? That's why we're asking you to accept the sale, said Jeffrey. It's the only way to resolve everything. And if I accept, how much will be left for me after you pay your debts? The three fell silent. It was obvious they hadn't thought of that. There will be something left, Aunt, said Gregory without conviction. Gregory, let's do the math. Howard is offering 150,000. You've already received 45,000 in advances. You owe 100,000 in debts. 55,000 minus 100,000 equals what? Oh, Aunt, it's not exactly like that, tried Jeffrey. We can negotiate the debts. Can you? Who do you owe? Well, it's to banks, finance companies, some stores. Do you really think those institutions will accept half of what you owe? Silence again. It was clear they hadn't thought through the practical details of the plan. Besides, continued Martha, if I accept 150,000 for the ranch, where will I live? How will I support myself? You could rent a little apartment in the nearby town, suggested Heather. With what money? If you take almost everything to pay the debts, what will be left for me? You're right, Aunt, admitted Gregory with his head down. We didn't think it through. No, you didn't think. You only thought about solving your own problems. Martha stood up and went to the window. Outside, Rusty grazed peacefully under the moonlight. The horse had changed everything that day. I have a proposal, she said, sitting back down. The three looked at her hopefully. I'll help you resolve this situation, but my way. What do you mean, Aunt? I will sell the ranch, yes, but for a fair price, and we'll do everything legally and transparently. Are you going to accept Mr. Howard's offer? No. I'll look for other buyers and sell for the property's real value. But, Aunt, it could take months to find another buyer. And you can't wait? The three exchanged nervous glances. It's just that the creditors are demanding payment, Aunt, explained Heather. Some have already threatened to take legal action. What kind of action? Debt collection, account freezes, those sorts of things, said Jeffrey. Martha realized the situation was even more serious than she had imagined. They weren't just in debt, they were being sued. All right, she said. Here's what I'll do. I'll accept the sale to Howard, but for $300,000, not $150,000. Aunt, he'll never agree to pay that much, protested Gregory. Then we'll find out, won't we? Maybe he was trying to buy it too cheaply. And if he refuses? Then we look for another buyer at the fair price. But, Aunt, what if it takes too long? Heather was desperate. You should have thought of that before getting into debt. Martha knew she was being hard on them, but they needed to learn the lesson. For decades she had been the kind aunt who always solved everyone's problems. Now it was time to set boundaries. Tomorrow I'll call Howard and make the counteroffer, she said. If he accepts, we sell. If he doesn't, we look for another buyer. And in the meantime, what do we do about the creditors? Asked Jeffrey. Tell them the truth. Say the sale is being negotiated and ask for more time. You make it sound so easy, murmured Gregory. It's not easy, but it's the consequence of the choices you made. After her nephews and niece had left, Martha was alone with her thoughts. She had decided not to reveal the truth about the documents yet. She wanted to see how they would react to the new sale conditions before showing her cards. The next morning, she called Howard and arranged a meeting at the ranch for that same afternoon. When he arrived, he wore a confident expression, as if he thought she had caved to the pressure. So, Mrs. Martha, he said, reconsidered my offer. I have, and I have a counter-offer. Oh, really? What is it? $300,000. Howard laughed loudly. You're joking with me, Mrs. Martha. 150,000 is already more than this property is worth. Are you sure about that? Absolutely. Just look at the state of this house, this land. Did you have a technical appraisal done of the property? Don't need an appraisal to see this place isn't worth anything. Martha realized he was lying shamelessly. No businessman would make an offer without properly evaluating what he was buying. You know what, Mr. Howard? I think I'd better look for other buyers. You can look all you want. You won't find anyone willing to pay even half of what I'm offering. We'll see. Howard realized he was losing control of the situation. Mrs. Martha, I'll be frank with you. This is my final offer. 150,000, take it or leave it. Then I'll leave it. You'll regret this. Opportunities like this don't come along often. I'm sure better ones will come along. After Howard left, visibly irritated, Martha called Attorney Arthur and asked him to recommend other potential buyers. The lawyer said he knew a businessman from a nearby town who was interested in rural properties for investment. Attorney Arthur, she asked, do you really think this ranch is worth 300,000? Mrs. Martha, with current land prices in the region, this property is worth at least 400,000. The location is excellent. The land is productive, and the house, although it needs some repairs, has a good structure. The confirmation that she was being deceived made her even more determined to assert her rights. The next day, Gregory, Jeffrey, and Heather returned to the ranch with unfriendly expressions. Aunt, Howard came to us saying you refused his offer, said Gregory angrily. I did refuse. He was offering far too little. Aunt, you can't do this to us, exploded Heather. We're counting on that money. And I'm counting on receiving a fair price for my property. Your property? Said Jeffrey in a sarcastic tone. This ranch is a family inheritance. It belongs to all of us. Martha fell silent for a moment. The time had come to show her hand. Sit down, Jeffrey, she said calmly. All three of you. We need to have a serious talk. They sat in the living room, clearly irritated and impatient. Jeffrey, you said this ranch belongs to all of us, right? Of course it does. It's our grandfather's inheritance. And who told you that? Mom always said the ranch would be divided equally among the children. And you never questioned that? Why would we question it? Asked Gregory. It's what Mom told us since we were kids. Martha went to the cabinet and took out the documents Rusty had found. She returned to the living room and placed them on the table. What's this, Aunt? Asked Heather curiously. These are documents I found yesterday. Documents that changed everything I thought about this inheritance. She showed the original deed to the ranch, pointing to the name of the sole heir, Martha Louise Miller. According to your grandfather's original will, this ranch belongs entirely to me. Beatrice lied to you for decades. The room fell completely silent. The three stared at the papers with incredulous expressions. This can't be true, murmured Gregory. It is true. Attorney Arthur has already confirmed the authenticity of these documents. But why would Mum lie about something like that? Asked Heather with tears in her eyes. Martha showed Beatrice's letter explaining her reasons. Your mother felt guilty for not taking care of your father the way I did. She knew the ranch was rightfully mine, but she never had the courage to tell you the truth. Jeffrey picked up the letter and read it aloud. When he finished, he was visibly shaken. So we have no right to anything? He asked in a broken voice. Legally, no. This property is entirely mine. But Aunt, said Gregory desperately, we grew up believing we would inherit part of this ranch. We made plans, took on commitment. I understand that, Gregory, and that's why I'm willing to help you. How so? Asked Heather hopefully. Even though I have no legal obligation to do so, I will share the money from the sale with you. But in my own way and at a fair price. The three looked at her with a mixture of relief and suspicion. How would this division work? Asked Gregory. First, we'll sell the ranch for a fair price. Not for the 150,000 Howard offered, but for the 400,000 it's actually worth. 400,000? Jeffrey seemed incredulous. It's the property's real value according to a professional appraisal. And then I keep 250,000. You three split 150,000 among yourselves, pay off your debts, and learn to live within your means. 50,000 each, calculated Heather quickly. That's what I think is fair. It's more than you legally deserve, but It's what I'm willing to do for the family. Gregory did the math in his head. Aunt, 50,000 won't be enough for each of us to pay our debts. Then you'll have to negotiate with your creditors or find another source of income. But Aunt, Gregory, you're not in a position to negotiate. I could keep everything and give you nothing. I'm offering 50,000 to each of you out of kindness, not obligation. The three fell silent, digesting the new reality. And if we don't agree? Asked Jeffrey defiantly. Then I'll sell the ranch anyway, keep all the money, and you figure out how to pay your debts. You would really do that? Asked Heather, horrified. I would. This ranch is mine, Heather. I have every right to do what I want with it. The hardness in Martha's voice made them realize she wasn't bluffing. For the first time in decades, they were seeing their aunt in a new light. She was no longer the kind, submissive woman who always gave in to others' requests. I need an answer, she said. Do you accept my proposal or not? The three looked at each other, clearly divided. Can we talk in private? Asked Gregory. Of course. Go out to the porch. I'll wait here. Martha watched them through the window as they argued animatedly on the porch. Gregory was gesturing a lot, Jeffrey seemed nervous, and Heather was crying. The conversation lasted almost half an hour. When they returned, Gregory served as the spokesman. Aunt, we accept your proposal. Are you sure? Yes. 50,000 each is better than nothing. Then it's decided. I'll call Attorney Arthur today and ask him to find a serious buyer. Aunt, said Heather timidly, can we ask a favor? What favor? Could you try to speed up the sale? It's just that our creditors are really pressuring us. I'll do what I can, but I won't accept low offers just because you're in a hurry. During the following week, Attorney Arthur presented 3 potential buyers for the ranch. The first offered $350,000, the second $380,000, and the third offered the $400,000 that Martha was asking. The third buyer was David Vance, an agribusiness entrepreneur from a nearby town. He had visited the property accompanied by an agronomist and was impressed with the land's potential. Mrs. Martha, he said during the meeting at Attorney Arthur's office, this is an excellent property. With some investment, it can become very productive. Do you plan to live on the ranch? No, I plan to use it for cattle raising and planting. It's a long-term investment. And the payment? I can pay in cash, no financing. The money will be available upon signing the contract. It was exactly what Martha needed to hear. They closed the deal that same day, with the contract signing scheduled for the following week. When Martha told her nephews about the sale, they were euphoric. $50,000 each was more than they had dreamed of when they started negotiating with Howard. Aunt, you're an angel, said Heather, hugging her with tears in her eyes. I'm not an angel, Heather. I'm someone who still believes in family. We promise we'll learn from our mistakes, said Gregory. We'll never get into debt without thinking again. I hope you keep that promise. The contract signing took place on a sunny Thursday at the Notary Public office in the nearby town. David Vance brought the money as promised, and all the documentation was processed without problems. When they left the Notary Public office, Martha had $250,000 in her bank account, and each nephew had received their $50,000. For the first time in months, everyone seemed relieved. And now, Aunt, asked Jeffrey, what are you going to do? I'm going to buy a house in the nearby town and live peacefully with my money. Will you miss the ranch, ma'am? Martha looked toward the property that had been her home for 73 years. She would miss it, without a doubt. But she also felt relieved to finally have control over her own life. I will miss it, she admitted. But sometimes you have to say goodbye to the past to embrace the future. And what about Rusty? Asked Heather. What will happen to him? I spoke with David. He promised to take good care of Rusty. The horse can keep grazing on the ranch for the rest of his life. On moving day, Martha went to the stone well where it had all begun. Rusty was there, as if he knew she had come to say goodbye. Thank you, my old friend, she said, stroking the animal's muzzle. If it weren't for you, I would never have discovered the truth. The horse looked at her with his dark, wise eyes, as if he perfectly understood what was happening. Then he slowly walked away, returning to the field where he had always lived free. Martha moved into a comfortable house in the nearby town, 2 blocks from the central square. It was small but cozy, with a garden where she could plant flowers and keep a few cats. With the money from the sale, she managed to pay off the house, buy new furniture, and still had a good amount left over, which she put into savings to ensure a peaceful old age. The nephews used the money more responsibly this time. Gregory paid off his debts and opened a small business in town. Jeffrey paid off his car loan and went back to work as a mechanic. Heather finished renovating her house and got a job as a housekeeper. None of the 3 got rich, but they all learned to live within their means, and most importantly, they learned to respect the aunt they had so underestimated. A few months after the move, Martha received a visit from David Vance, the new owner of the ranch. "Mrs. Martha," he said, "I've come with news about Rusty." "Is he well?" "He's great. But something interesting happened. He went back to the stone well and found something else." Martha's eyes widened. "What?" "Another plastic bag, this time with old jewelry and a few more documents." "What documents?" "Old letters, receipts, some things that look important. I brought everything for you." David handed over a bag with the new findings. Martha examined everything carefully and discovered they were family jewels that had been given up for lost decades ago. There were also love letters between her parents and documents about other properties the family had owned in the past. "It's as if your sister had hidden an entire treasure in that well," commented David. "Beatrice was always very careful with family matters. She must have hidden everything over the years to protect it from greedy people." The jewelry was appraised at over $20,000. Martha decided to sell it and split the money equally between herself and her nephews. It was a pleasant surprise for everyone. When she handed $5,000 to each nephew, she saw tears of gratitude in their eyes. "Aunt, you didn't have to do this," said Heather, moved. "I know, but family is family, right?" "We will never forget your kindness," said Gregory. "Then don't forget the lesson you learned either. Money doesn't bring happiness when it's mismanaged." 2 years after the move, Martha had completely adapted to life in town. She made new friends, joined senior groups, and discovered she had a knack for crafts. Every now and then, she would visit the ranch to see Rusty and observe the improvements David had made to the property. The horse always welcomed her affectionately, like an old friend who keeps important secrets. The nephews had also changed a lot. Gregory remarried and was happy with his small business. Jeffrey discovered a talent for teaching and gave mechanics lessons to young people. Heather finished high school and was taking a technical nursing course. They all learned that true wealth isn't in the money you have, but in how you live and the people you love. And Rusty continued to roam free on the ranch, grazing peacefully and guarding the secrets of a family that learned the value of honesty, hard work, and love. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like and especially to subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. 3 years had passed since the discovery that changed everything. Martha had settled permanently in the nearby town and built a new routine that made her happy. She woke up early to water her garden, had breakfast while reading the local newspaper, and spent her mornings doing crafts with a group of friends her own age. In the afternoons, she would usually walk around the central square, greet acquaintances, and do a little shopping at the local market. It was a simple life, but one full of satisfaction and peace. Her relationship with her nephews had also completely transformed. Instead of the tense, self-interested visits of the past, they now sought her out regularly for genuine affection. Gregory brought his new wife to introduce her. Jeffrey showed her the projects he was developing with his students, and Heather talked about her progress in her studies. "Aunt," said Heather during a Sunday visit, "we wanted to thank you once again for everything you've done for us." "You've thanked me thousands of times," laughed Martha. "No need anymore." "But we are aware of how unfair we were to you," continued Gregory. "We only thought about money." "And what do you think about now?" "Working properly, living honestly, taking care of family," replied Jeffrey. "Things you always tried to teach us." Martha was moved by her nephew's words. She saw that they had truly matured and learned from past mistakes. "The important thing is that you've understood money isn't everything in life," she said. "Health, family, dignity, these things are priceless." That same Sunday afternoon, David Vance appeared unexpectedly at Martha's house. He seemed agitated and wore a serious expression that worried her. "Mrs. Martha, I need to speak with you about an important discovery." "Did Rusty find something else?" she asked, already accustomed to the surprises the horse provided. "No, not Rusty this time. It was a crew of workers who were clearing the land to plant soybeans." "What did they find?" "An old safe buried near the abandoned house, and inside were documents you need to see." David handed over a folder with papers yellowed by time. Martha examined them with growing attention, and her expression changed as she read. "It can't be," she murmured. "Unfortunately, it's true, Mrs. Martha. According to these documents, there is a second property that belonged to your father, a smaller ranch about 30 miles from here. But I never knew about this property. From the documents, your father bought it a few years before he passed, but never got around to registering it officially. Your sister Beatrice knew of its existence, but apparently decided to hide this too." Martha felt a mix of shock and indignation. How many more secrets had Beatrice kept? And what happened to this second ranch? "It's been abandoned for decades, but according to the documentation, the ownership is legal and can be formalized." "Is it worth anything?" "From the documents here, it's 15 acres of good land. Even abandoned, it must be worth about $200,000. Once again, Martha found herself facing a discovery that changed everything, but this time her reaction was different. Instead of the anger and surprise of the first discovery, she felt only a deep sadness. "Why did Beatrice do this to me?" she asked quietly. "Why did she hide so many things?" "Perhaps she wanted to protect you from more responsibilities," David suggested gently. "Or perhaps she wanted to protect the children from the truth about the inheritance," Martha pondered. During the following days, Martha couldn't stop thinking about the new discovery. She decided she needed to visit the second ranch to better understand the situation. David offered to take her there, and on a Thursday morning they made the trip in his pickup truck. What they found was a completely abandoned property, a house in ruins, tall weeds covering everything, and clear signs that no one had taken care of the place for many years. "It's in much worse shape than the first ranch," David commented. "But the land seems good," Martha observed, examining the soil. "It is. With investment, it could become productive again." As she walked through the abandoned property, Martha tried to imagine why her father had bought that land without ever speaking about it. Perhaps it was an investment for the future, or a reserve for difficult times. "David," she finally said, "would you be interested in buying this property too?" "Possibly, yes, but first you need to sort out the documentation." "And how much would that cost?" "A few $1,000s in fees and lawyers, but it's worth it for the value of the land." Martha decided to seek out attorney Arthur again to guide her on the legal procedures. The lawyer confirmed that it was possible to regularize the land title, but it would be a longer and more complicated process than the sale of the first ranch. "Mrs. Martha," he said, "you have two options. You can regularize the property and then sell it, or you can sell it as is, with the possession documentation for a lower price." "What would the difference in value be?" "Regularized, it's worth $200,000. As it is now, about $120,000. And the time? To fully regularize, about 6 months. To sell as is, a few weeks." Martha decided to take the faster route. She didn't want any more complications in her life, and $120,000 was still a considerable amount. David agreed to buy the second property under the offered conditions, and in less than a month the deal was closed. Once again, Martha found herself with unexpected money in her account. This time, however, she decided to do something different with the money. Instead of keeping it for herself or dividing it with her nephews and niece, she resolved to invest in something that would benefit the community. After much thought, she decided to create a small foundation to help needy elderly people in the region. With the $120,000 from the sale of the second ranch, she set up a fund that would pay for basic food baskets, medicine, and small assistance for elderly people in need. The initiative caused a great stir in the nearby town. Martha became known as the kind-hearted widow who used her inheritance to help the less fortunate. "Aunt, you are incredible," Gregory said when he learned of the project. "Turning money into help for other people. That's saintly." "I'm not a saint, Gregory. I'm just someone who understood that money only has value when it's used for good. Can we help in some way?" "Yes, you can. You know the town better than I do. You can help me identify who really needs help." The three nephews and niece became actively involved in the project. Gregory used his business contacts to get better prices on purchases. Jeffrey offered his mechanic services for free to repair equipment for needy elderly people. Heather, with her nursing knowledge, began making home visits to advise on healthcare. The project grew beyond the initial expectations. Other people from the nearby town began making donations, and soon the foundation was helping not only the elderly, but also families in vulnerable situations. Martha became a respected and beloved figure in the community. Her home was always open to receive people who needed help or just a friendly conversation. 2 years after the foundation's creation, she received an unexpected visit. It was Howard, the same businessman who had tried to buy her first ranch for a low price. "Mrs. Martha," he said with an embarrassed air, "I've come here to apologize." "Apologize for what?" "For trying to deceive you in that ranch deal. I know you found out I was offering far too little." "And why are you apologizing to me now?" "Because I learned about the work you are doing with the foundation, and it made me reflect on my own actions." Martha invited him to sit on the porch and offered coffee. "Howard, can I ask you something?" "Of course, Mrs. Martha." "Why did you want to buy my ranch for such a low price?" "To resell it immediately for a much higher value. I had an interested buyer who would pay $500,000 for the property. So you would make over $300,000 from my loss?" "That's right, and I felt no remorse at the time." "And what changed?" "Seeing how you used the money from the sale to help others made me realize I was being greedy and dishonest." Martha was silent for a moment, observing the man before her. Howard seemed genuinely remorseful. "Howard, do you want to do something to make up for it? What do you have in mind?" "How about making a donation to the foundation? It doesn't have to be much, just what you can." "Mrs. Martha, I would like to donate $50,000 to the project." "50,000? Are you sure?" "Yes, I am. It's a way to compensate, at least in part, for what I tried to do to you." Howard's donation allowed the foundation to significantly expand its services. They managed to rent their own headquarters, hire a social worker, and create new assistance programs. Martha became a kind of matriarch of the community, respected by all for her generosity and wisdom. Her home was a meeting point for discussions about the town's problems and planning social actions. The nephews remained active in the project, each contributing with their skills. Gregory had become the foundation's unofficial treasurer, Jeffrey coordinated maintenance and repair services, and Heather took care of health-related aspects for those assisted. "Aunt," said Heather during a foundation meeting, "we wanted to propose something." "What is it?" "How about we name the foundation after you?" "The Martha Louise Miller Foundation sounds good, don't you think?" "No, I don't think it's a good idea." "Why not?" "Because this project isn't mine. It's ours, belonging to all of us who work together." "Then what name do you suggest?" Martha thought for a moment. "How about the Beatrice Foundation?" "Because of your sister?" "Exactly. Even with all the mistakes she made, it was thanks to the secrets she kept that we discovered our true inheritance. And the true inheritance wasn't the properties, but the opportunity to do good." The suggestion was accepted unanimously. The Beatrice Foundation officially became the name of the organization that was already helping hundreds of people in the region. During the inauguration ceremony of the new headquarters, Martha gave an emotional speech about the importance of using available resources to build a better world. "Sometimes," she said to the audience, "life presents us with surprises that test our character. We can use those surprises for our exclusive benefit, or we can turn them into blessings for other people. The choice is always ours." At the end of the event, David Vance approached her with intriguing news. "Mrs. Martha, I have something to tell you." "What is it?" "Rusty made another discovery." "Really? What did he find this time?" "This time it wasn't in the well. It was in an old tree at the back of the property. He wouldn't stop scratching it with his hooves, so I decided to investigate. And what did you find? A hole in the trunk with more documents hidden inside. Martha laughed. Beatrice really hid things all over the ranch, didn't she? It seems so, but these documents are different. How are they different? They're love letters. Lots of love letters. Love letters from whom? From your father to your mother, written before they got married, and some letters from her to him, too. Martha was moved. Her parents had passed when she was still young, and she knew few details about their romance. David, could you bring me those letters? Of course, Mrs. Martha. By the way, there's one more thing. What? Along with the letters was a small hand-drawn map showing the location of something else hidden on the property. You're joking with me. I'm not. Beatrice really turned that ranch into a treasure hunt. The next day, David brought the letters and the map to Martha. She spent hours reading the correspondence between her parents, discovering details about their relationship she had never known. The letters revealed a deep and lasting love, full of complicity and mutual respect. Her parents had faced many hardships together, always supporting each other in difficult times. That's why they were so happy together, thought Martha, wiping away tears of emotion. The map showed the location of something hidden near an old corral at the back of the property. David offered to investigate, but Martha insisted on going with him. This might be the last surprise Beatrice kept, she said. I want to be there when we find it. The following Saturday, they went to the ranch accompanied by the 3 nephews, who were also curious about the new discovery. Rusty followed them the whole walk, as if he knew exactly where they were going. The map led them to a large stone near the old corral. Digging beside the stone, they found a metal box buried about 1/2 meter deep. Inside the box were old photographs, more letters, and a considerable amount of gold coins that had belonged to Martha's great-grandfather. "Good heavens!" exclaimed Gregory. "How many coins are these?" "About 50 from what I can see," replied David, examining the contents. "And how much is that worth?" "Well, old gold coins can be worth a lot of money. It depends on their rarity and condition." Martha picked up one of the photographs. It showed her parents young, smiling in front of the first ranch. On the back there was a date and a handwritten phrase, "Our first harvest, 1952, may God bless this land and our family." "Look at this," she said, showing the photo to the others. "Our parents were so young." "And so happy," added Heather, also getting emotional. The coins were appraised by a numismatist from the state capital, who confirmed it was a valuable collection. The total value was approximately $80,000. Once again, Martha found herself facing a decision about what to do with unexpected money. And once again, her choice surprised everyone. "I'll donate half to the Beatrice Foundation," she announced, "and the other half I'll split equally among the 3 of you." "Aunt, again, you don't have to do this," protested Jeffrey. "I know I don't have to, Jeffrey, but I want to. You have dedicated yourselves so much to the Foundation's work that you deserve to be rewarded." "But that's over $13,000 each." "So what? You're not the same irresponsible young men you were a few years ago. I trust you'll use the money wisely." And they really did. Gregory invested the amount in his business, managing to expand it and create more jobs in the nearby town. Jeffrey used the money to set up his own workshop, specialized in teaching mechanics to underprivileged youth. Heather completed her nursing course and opened a private clinic that also provided free care to people unable to pay. The $40,000 donated to the Beatrice Foundation allowed for the creation of new projects, including an adult literacy program and a crafts workshop that generated income for families in vulnerable situations. Martha, at 78 years old, became one of the most respected and beloved people in the region. Her story of transformation and generosity inspired others to also contribute to the common good. During an interview for the local newspaper, the reporter asked what had been the most important moment of her life. "It was when Rusty brought that first bag from the well," she replied without hesitation. "That changed everything, not just because I discovered the truth about the inheritance, but because I learned that sometimes we need to lose some things to find others that are much more valuable." "And what do you consider most valuable today?" "A united family, the possibility of helping other people, and the certainty that I made a difference in someone's life. That is priceless. 5 years after the first discovery in the well, the Beatrice Foundation had become one of the most important social organizations in the region. It served more than 500 families and had created dozens of direct and indirect jobs. Martha continued to live in the same house in the nearby town, but now she received constant visits from people who wanted to meet her in person or ask for advice about their own lives. The nephews had prospered in their respective jobs and become respected community leaders. Gregory was president of the local business association, Jeffrey coordinated professional training programs at the City Hall, and Heather had become the head nurse of the Municipal Health Centre. They all remained active in the Beatrice Foundation, which now operated with a staff of 12 employees and had the support of over 100 volunteers. "Aunt," said Gregory during a Sunday visit, "we wanted to tell you something." "What is it?" "We decided to formalize something that's already been happening in practice for years." "What thing?" "We want you to be the honorary president of the foundation, forever." "I don't know if it's necessary." "Yes, it is, Aunt," Heather interrupted. "You are the soul of this project. Without your vision and your generosity, none of this would exist. And besides," added Jeffrey, "we want everyone to know that the Beatrice Foundation exists because a courageous woman decided to turn an unexpected discovery into a force for good." Martha accepted the title, moved by the recognition from her family and the community. During the naming ceremony, which took place in the central square of the nearby town with hundreds of people in attendance, she gave her last major public speech. "When I was younger," she said to the crowd, "I thought happiness was having security, money saved, and a life without surprises. Today, I know I was wrong. Happiness is being able to make a difference in other people's lives. It is seeing that our actions can transform the world around us. It is discovering that true wealth lies in sharing what we have with those in need." The Beatrice Foundation is not just mine, nor just my family's. It belongs to all of you who believed in this project and turned it into a reality. It belongs to all the volunteers who donate their time and work. It belongs to all the donors who contribute what they can. It belongs to this whole wonderful community that embraced the idea that together we can build a better world. But if I could give one piece of advice to all of you, it would be this: never underestimate the power of a generous gesture. Never think you are too small to make a difference, and never forget that sometimes life's greatest treasures come disguised as problems or difficulties. If it weren't for the mistakes and hardships my family faced, we would never have discovered our capacity to love and help each other. If it weren't for the pressure from my nephews for me to sell the ranch, I would never have discovered the secrets Beatrice was keeping. And if it weren't for a curious horse that decided to investigate an abandoned well, none of this would have happened. Life has its mysteries and its surprises. Our role is to be open to receiving them and to transform them into blessings for ourselves and for others. When she finished the speech, the crowd applauded for several minutes. Many people were crying, moved by the words and by everything they had witnessed over the years. That evening, Martha dined at Gregory's house with the whole family gathered. Present were the 3 nephews, their respective families, and several children playing in the backyard. "Aunt," said Gregory, raising a glass of soda, "we wanted to make a toast." "To what?" "To the best aunt in the world. To the woman who taught us that family isn't just blood, it's love and dedication. To the person who turned our greed into generosity, our selfishness into altruism, and our ignorance into wisdom." "To Rusty, too," shouted one of the children, making everyone laugh. "That's right," agreed Martha. "To Rusty, who was the true hero of this story." Everyone toasted, and the evening continued with conversation, memories, and plans for the future. Later, when everyone had left and Martha was alone in her house, she sat on the porch and looked at the stars. She thought about the entire journey she had lived since that morning when Rusty brought the first bag from the well. She had lost the ranch where she was born and raised, but she had gained a united family, a community that respected her, and the satisfaction of knowing her life had made a difference for hundreds of people. At 82 years old, Martha still actively coordinated the activities of the Beatrice Foundation, which continued to grow and help more and more people. Her health was good, her mind remained sharp, and her energy for helping others seemed inexhaustible. Every now and then, she would visit the ranch to see Rusty, who was already showing signs of old age, but still grazed peacefully in the fields that had once been his home. "Thank you, old friend," she would always say to the horse. "You changed our lives for the better." And Rusty would always answer with a soft whinny, as if he perfectly understood his old friend's gratitude. The story of Martha, Rusty, and the Beatrice Foundation became known throughout the region. University students came to do projects about the initiative, journalists wrote reports about the community's transformation, and other towns asked for guidance to create similar programs. But for Martha, the most important thing wasn't the fame or the recognition. It was the smile of a child who received school supplies from the foundation. It was the relief on the face of an elderly person who could buy medicine thanks to the aid received. It was the restored dignity of a family that overcame hardships with the community's support. End of story. This was a fictional story created to touch our hearts. Now tell us what you thought. Do you believe Martha made the right decisions? How would you react if you discovered family secrets like these? Share your honest opinion in the comments. If the story touched your heart, leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories like this one.